Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is keeping safe and warm. And we would like to just welcome you to our segment on New Year, New Me, Mind, Body, and Spirit. I hope tonight you're able to get some information, to learn some things. And if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask those questions from our experts. So at this time, I would like to introduce you to our experts.
Hi.
Dr. Martina Davenport. We have Chris Snyder, and we have Lisa Simmons. Welcome, you all. And
Hello.
I'm
Hello.
moderator
Thank
Yvette Ellis.
you for having us.
So, guys, let's get started. When we talk about this New Year, New You, Chris,
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to share a little bit about yourself so everybody can know who you are. Can we do that real quick? I'll have you do that, and then we'll get Martina, and then we'll have Lisa.
Sure. My name is Chris Snyder. I'm an independent marriage and family therapist with a background in performance anxiety.
Chris, real quick, when we say performance anxiety, what do we mean?
As far as controlling the nervous system, we use the word, or you hear the word so often, about people being anxious. And I work with people, sports, performers, business folks who call it performance anxiety, but it's a form of worry. And I help them reduce that worry. So, for instance, if they come in with a level of 7, I help them reduce that down. It may not never be 0, but I made it get it down to 2 or 3 where they can function. So, for instance, if someone was struggling as a piece of what we did today, and they had to do it regularly, I would work with them on getting comfortable with being able to relax and present their information without it feeling like a threat. Same thing with athletes at crunch time. Even professional athletes have to be pulled out at crunch time because they haven't put a system in to manage their performance anxiety or that feeling in the body that overwhelms them. So today I'll be talking a lot about that brain body experience and managing that to where it doesn't overwhelm you.
Great. We're excited to hear more from you, Chris. And then now we have Dr. Martina Davenport. Dr. Martina, glad to have you. Can you share a little bit about, what you do, why you're here this evening?
Absolutely. So, I am Dr. Martina Davenport. I'm currently a psychologist as well as sleep scientist. More on the scientist side now, but my work is still very much so community oriented. So, a lot of the things that we do are really related to how do we help as many people as possible across generations sleep better in our community, not just locally in our county, but even across the nation as called upon. A lot of my work clinically has definitely helped me to understand the unfortunate disparities and the gaps that exist within the Black community in particular. So, even when we think about New Year, New Me, a lot of times people are going to jump into various routines that actually may be disruptive to their sleep without them knowing it, trying to reach other goals. And here I am to basically have a nice, healthy stop sign to say, slow down, let's think about sleep, let's prioritize rest, and let's really understand what that means and the things that are actually in your control.
We're excited to hear more from you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And Minister Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Minister Lisa. I'm a minister at New Birth Christian Ministries. I have been there for about 12 years, and I've been in ministry as a minister for about 7 years. I I've worked in education for 33 years, and I've worked with More Life as an emotional support counselor for about 3 years. And it's just been a rewarding experience to be able to bring in the spiritual component into helping people and offering them emotional support.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. And we look forward to hearing more from you as well. So you see, we have a great plethora of educators and professionals on the night, and I'm just excited. If you have, you're allowed to come in the chat if you want to ask any questions or have any remarks. We're looking forward to that. And so, are you guys ready to get started?
Yes,
New
ma'am.
year, new
Yes.
you, mind, body, and spirit. So, Martina, when people say "New Year, New Me," what do you think they're really hoping to change?
Honestly, I feel like when people say New Year, New Me, a lot of times it's because of a lack of contentment and satisfaction with where they were or where they currently are. Um, but it's important to me to really anchor that statement in the fact that a lot of folks will make all of these really ambitious goals to achieve this new version of themselves. I know, like, even recently on social media, you see, like, I'm rebranding myself. So sometimes a lot of the things that people focus on are very surface level. But I think, like, especially thinking about this particular um, seminar and audience, I think it's important to also remember that, like, even Jesus, like when he was sharing with John in Revelation 21:5, he said, "Behold, I am making all things new." So that wasn't past tense. That wasn't actually thinking about it in the future of I will, but I'm actively right now making in a transformational, gradual process on an ongoing basis, you knew, and all things new. So I think if people actually start doing the small steps, the little things that are actually in their control, it's to me something that will anchor them in having more satisfaction in their daily life. It's a really great book that I read even in grad school that was focused more on the growth mindset instead of focusing on achievements and being so goalpost oriented that you're constantly chasing something. And then when you get it, you're actually not satisfied when you achieve it. So that dissatisfaction and lack of contentment is something that is really cultivated by actually being present and really learning how to make those small decisions. And really, if you want to grow, you can grow, but celebrate the process more so than the outcome.
Great, thank you, Chris. You have anything that you can share with us on this specific question?
Sure. When we talk about that, one of the big things is what happened last year. What happened in 25 when somebody probably told themselves going into 26, I'm gonna change this. Another one is the repeating of old cycles, what we call those generational cycles or that family system stuff that we see where somebody swear by, I need to stop this, hopefully, so it don't get passed on. Somebody got to jump in and stop this thing. And the third one is like Doc mentioned, that external pressure. Um, Social media is a thorn in my side when I'm working with somebody as far as the toxic relationship positivity and the positive psychology, because they present these things and say, hey, this is what success looks like. However, whoever I'm working with may not be wired to handle that yet. It may be too much for them to walk into that. And now we back at that performance anxiety piece to where they crashing out because they're overwhelmed by their nervous system. Your brain don't know the difference between a bear coming at you or whatever this thing is I'm telling you that you need to be able to handle. And and that's the issue. So on the back end of that, I would suggest asking simple questions like, why now? Why do I need to do this now?
Mm,
And that may help. Another one is, if you met your goals, what would be different? And sometimes they tell you, and it has nothing to do with they trying to write down as the goal. It's more the process. The process is a big deal. And the third one is just simply asking the thoughts and challenging your thoughts, and don't let your thoughts run you. And that'll be also a theme that I'll be presenting as well, is your thoughts are not facts.
That's good.
And so, and that's where, the relationship and the spiritual piece about taking your thoughts captive and being aware and being present and not on autopilot, because your thoughts, once you get in that rabbit hole, it could be some problems for you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
Wow, that leads us in transition into Lisa, Minister Lisa, when he's talking about taking those thoughts. I wonder if you have somebody that really doesn't understand what that looks like. We're talking about making changes, doing something different for the new year. Can you give us a little bit about spiritually what that would look like, or even
Um,
sound like?
yes. So when we talk about New Year, New Me, really, I think a lot of people are really looking to reset. And I think that part of that is looking at what worked last year and looking at what didn't work. And sometimes we don't like to acknowledge, or sometimes we operate in delusion because of what we see, to Chris's point, on social media, because we don't want to acknowledge, yeah, I go to this job every day, but I hate it. That's not working for me. That has my
Right.
nervous system
Mhm.
messed up. Or I'm friends with someone and it's not working. And it's not, I wouldn't say, we don't always have to label things as good and bad, because that's black and white thinking. Sometimes it just doesn't work because it just doesn't work. So I think that when we acknowledge that and look at that, then we can move forward and focus on what does work and lean into the process, because Dr. Martina and Chris both talked about the process. And a lot of times the blessing is in the process. The
Mhm.
blessing is in the wait. So as we move forward, we have to understand that it is those small steps, as Dr. Martina mentioned, and it is the process. And we can move forward if our focus is from a spiritual perspective on Christ.
Okay. And so, as we're like transitioning and talking about the emotional piece and the spiritual piece, many spiritual traditions talk about that renewal, and talk about starting over. And so, Chris, I want to ask you, as our expert when it comes to like the mind and the resetting and those kind of things. Um, what kinds of emotional pressure do you see in the work that you're doing that individuals quietly carry? There's a lot of individuals, I'm sorry, Chris, a lot of individuals that are suffering quietly.
Mhm. And that's a big one, especially for my guys uh, who suffer in silence, who don't show up until the pain is too great, or in relationships. I'm the dude, the last conversation before they seek an attorney. So carrying that baggage around and not have to. The big thing is a lot of people struggle because things move so fast they don't feel.
Mhm.
So the first thing the brain says, the brain is built on survival, and it's always scanning for patterns of unsafety. So when it picks up something in milliseconds, it sounds the red code alert. Something is about to jump off. Let's move. It sends hormones through the body. That's your fight, flight, and there's some other things could do. And then you're going to feel something. The problem is we're not tapped in enough to feel your heartbeat, feel your stomach, the knots in your stomach, feel your back or your hands shaking. I got older. Now I sweat. And then I said, "Wow, I'm sweating." Everybody can see it. Then I sweat some more because my brain is saying we're not safe. The difference is I know how to manage it, of course, because this is what I do for a living. Some people say, I don't feel anything, Chris. That's the people who says, I don't feel anything because they taught themselves not to feel.
Mm.
And no feeling, I have to teach, is a feeling. So we have to slow down and tap into what our bodies is telling us. So for instance, with the snow like this, I rolled a Jeep on the ice. I didn't do any work on it, but I know when I go over a bridge, I grab the wheel, take my foot off the gas pedal, and I feel it in my body because that energy, that trauma is still stored. 30 years ago, I still do that. Some of us walk around and that's normal. And so that's an addicted to drama situation to where they have to do things to stir themselves up. If their body gets too quiet, that's the uncomfortable piece for them.
Mm.
And so on the third one, the ones who say, I don't feel, they have to learn to tap into their bodies. So therefore, when I'm doing work, I give everybody a feeling sheet. And I may not have one. Oh, I have a pillow just like this.
Mm.
And they're required to tap into that feeling in their bodies and start giving me something other than a primary emotion, angry, sad. Because my dude's angry and society accepts angry. So they can be angry. So they have to use something other than that, which is called affect regulation. I thought I'd throw that in there. When we start naming our emotions, now our thinking brain comes back online and it calms us. So when we flip it out, I call it the chimp. And I tell my guys I had the same toys and I say it looks like this, the chimp is out. So carrying that emotion, we have to keep the thinking brain online. And a long-winded answer to we need to do more feeling in our bodies.
It's okay, Professor. I have to call Chris the Professor. See, so I'm going to go over to you real quick, Dr. Martina, and I'm going to ask this question. We didn't scroll it yet, but it kind of fits into what Chris is talking about. How does poor sleep show up emotionally in people's daily lives, even when they don't realize it's connected?
I know this is like the best question, but also the question that I think is not a shocker to people, but yet they're not walking around, like Chris said, like self-aware that sleep actually may be the culprit that's driving some of those behavioral changes. So even when we think about adults, right? If we don't get 7 to 9 hours, we're drifting around like 5 or 6, or even worse than that, sleep deprivation of below that, insufficient sleep threshold. A lot of times we will be more irritable the next day. We will notice that sometimes for those who may have already experienced depression or even seasonal affective disorder, if they have an anxiety disorder, even if they have PTSD and their hyperarousal, so their like excitability and their nervousness and all this other stuff related to the trauma, those symptoms are actually increased and heightened to the point where they will be more sad, more anxious, more aroused, more like things are going on. But then we also have to think about our friends who are diagnosed with bipolar and manic episodes and different other things like that, where either they won't sleep for days or for long periods of time, or they will sleep when they're now having the other side of it, where they're now feeling really low and they'll sleep for a really long time. So it's really trying to help people to make those connections, but without being long-winded. I'm trying to be like Chris, like, okay, let me reel it in. But without being too long-winded, I just want people to really just be aware that if you are having that experience without being aware as an adult, what do you think kids are going through? Especially those kids who have an ADHD diagnosis where now they're even more hyper, they're even more impulsive, they're even more inattentive during the day. With and without a diagnosis, kids show up that way when there's sleep problems, which is why when a child is only 5 years old or lower, let alone 8 years old or lower, we're not supposed to be focusing on giving them medication and a diagnosis of ADHD. We're supposed to be addressing sleep and other things that may be causing this inattentive, hyperactive presentation. I'm going to pause there because I know a lot of people want the quick fix. And hopefully now people will begin to advocate and say, can you please do a thorough sleep evaluation on my child, let alone I don't know much about sleep probably. So can you teach me how to deal and manage their sleep problems before you throw this diagnosis on my child? So the other thing too is thinking about for kids with neurodevelopmental and intellectual disabilities, the symptoms that they may present with behaviorally, tantrums, different other things, even like the social skills, because of sleep being so critical to development. When they don't sleep well, those things are also increased. So if you are thinking about maybe like a child is being more avoidant, or they're displaying like other like external or even like internalizing things more, it may be worth checking out how they're actually sleeping. So I have actually put into the chat the sleep education ASM healthy sleep bedtime calculator, because I would be on here all day if I tried to tell everybody the exact amount of hours that their child's supposed to get for their age, let alone for themselves. So this is a calculator that I recommend that all families use for every member of the household. Type in your age, type in the time where typically you all would wake up, and then for each individual member, you'll be able to get the exact time that you actually are recommended to go to bed. My qualifying statement with this is just because the calculator tells you to go to bed at that time, please pay attention to if it's too early and you're having a hard time falling asleep, or your child's having a hard time falling asleep. It's not always bedtime resistance, especially in children. Sometimes it just may be too early for their little rhythm. So they may not be sleepy. And that's what you should really think about, is how you guys can focus on being more sleepy and relaxed so that you can go to bed at the right time. That means turning off the lights, all the other things that I'll get into a little bit later when we think about sleep habits. But it's just something that I think a lot of people forget, is when they don't have a good rest, their mood, their anxiety, their symptoms behaviorally, emotionally, mood-wise change. But with children, we get mad at them when they fall asleep at school, when they didn't get enough rest. We shouldn't be punishing that. We should be trying to fix that versus acting like it's in their control. So that's just something that I would recommend, is just become more aware. And when you start seeing those behavioral challenges or different other things, maybe start paying attention to that nighttime routine and the bedtime schedule that your child has. Because let's say you put them into bed, but then they secretly started playing video games or just looking at their phones, and you're thinking they got all this sleep and they didn't. So that's for teenagers, and even our school-age kids are unfortunately sneaking after everybody went to bed and playing video games.
So we're getting some good information on this evening. New year, new me, mind, body, and spirit. And so I'm going to go to Minister Lisa, because Minister Lisa, when I hear them talking about rest and care, it just doesn't affect our emotional side. It affects our spiritual side. And so how can spiritual practices and teachings show us our worth, support how we feel when we're tired, discouraged, or behind? So I'm kind of lumping it all together.
You are lumping it all together, so I'm going to try to unpack it all.
So how, you want me to re-say it again? Oh, there we got it. How can spiritual practices support people who feel tired, discouraged, or behind?
Okay, so let's talk about tired. We live in such a busy society, and I often say that family and friends, everybody has a second job because everyone's trying to have ends meet. And what does that look like for ourselves, and what does that look like for our families? It definitely impacts our physical, how we're physically tired and able to receive rest. I would venture to say, and Dr. Martina, you can chime in on this. Most of us don't get enough sleep. We just don't. And if you are a working parent with several jobs with kids, and your kids are in activities and things, your physical, the last thing the first thing we compromise is our sleep. So our physical rest is very important to God, because guess what he did on the seventh day? He rested. Now, he's God, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and he took a day of rest. So what does that say to us as his children in his image? That we too should rest, even if it's just one day. We too should make rest as part of our worship. And I think that we undervalue rest because of our culture. So let me move on. And with that becomes the when we don't receive enough rest, that impacts us mentally and emotionally. So yeah, we're just no wonder we're depressed and we have anxiety. We should, because we don't get any sleep. We're anxious because we have all these things to do, and we're tired, and we're in the rat race trying to do everything, running on nothing. And even in the body of Christ, even in church, I remember we were talking in one of the classes that I facilitate, and I asked people, I said, how many ministries is everybody in? 1, 2, 3. Some people are in upwards of 3 to 5 ministries. Now, listen, yes, we want you to participate and be plugged in at church. Is it God's calling, or is it your calling? Or is it what you want to do? Is it really a God thing? Because we all know that a good thing is not necessarily a God thing. So maybe we might need to reconsider some of that. And feeling discouraged, let me circle back to the whole feeling discouraged. Sometimes we get discouraged, and we can tie that into being behind, because we feel that we want to provide certain experiences for our children. We want to provide a certain educational setting for our children. None of those things are wrong. No, none of those things are wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But what are we sacrificing to have that? And again, I go back to, does it align with with our godly purpose? So those are just a couple of things that I like to add. But
and I was going to add this other question too. I'm going to pose it to Dr. Martina real quick, since we're talking about that rest and the importance of sleep. For someone who says, I don't have time to rest, what's a small shift that they can make that would make a real difference?
One, that is triggering for me to hear stuff like that, because people will say, I don't have time for rest, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And literally the stats show, okay, that will happen really early if you don't make time. So I know for sleep, that is more of a body process that people don't really understand. Whether you're aware of it or not, you actually are built in and wired to need to turn this body off so that your body can heal, it can reset, and it can actually do what it needs to do better the next day. And when we don't turn it off, especially for the appropriate time for ourselves, that is really dangerous, because now you're throwing off like the other things that your body's built in to do. And even your organs, your systems and stuff like that aren't getting the reset and the healing that they need. So when somebody says, I don't have time to rest, like what's one small thing that I can actually do? I always tell them that whether you're a shift worker or you're a parent of 5 kids, or if you're single or if you're married or different other things, we all are built in with this like built-in system where when it's dark, God made us to actually feel sleepy. So we start making our own melatonin. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour to kind of do its own thing internally, but it needs to be dark. And that is something that you can do with blackout curtains during the day if you're a shift worker or different other things. But at night in particular, a lot of people are trying to go against the way that the Lord made us, and they're using these devices without turning them on night mode, let alone forgetting that these are really charging, exciting things that they're watching nonstop. And that's something that you have to change. Whether you're aware of it or not, it's better to really reduce the light on that device to put on the night mode. So we always say redder the better, bluer the worser. And some kids that I've worked with took that literally. So they were like, oh, yeah, I got red LED lights. Those are really bright, like the sun. That's what bluer the worser really is not like literally the color of the light, but the like kind of tone and hue of it. So for those parents of teenagers who have LED lights, this is a really great time to encourage them to dim those within 1 hour of bed, no matter what they say. And then the other thing too is use night mode. Even turn your device over and just listen to whatever you're watching, or maybe start winding down where you dim the lights like throughout the house and have like kind of like a wind down period for your family, especially if you're dealing with multiple people in your household. But if you're all by yourself and you're able to make your own changes, that's the best thing that I can tell you, is to actually use your electronics like with the bright setting less and turn off the lights a little bit. So even right now, anybody who knows me, my bedtime is 9. So the fact that I'm still awake and let alone have all these bright lights on, an anomaly, but I love everybody who's on this call, so I'm making the sacrifice. And if I weren't, this place would be dim and it would be very calming in here. I wouldn't be doing this electronics kind of thing. And that's something that I just highly recommend, is you want to do closer to that 1 hour time before your bedtime. That's typical for you, something that is really relaxing, that calms your body, especially for people who are on the more like anxious side. You really need to practice during the day what relaxes your body, and then also practice it at night. And then beyond that, you just want to make sure that the environment is dim. So you want to make sure that it's dark, and you want to make sure that it's cool. So that like 62 to 68 degrees is actually more ideal. Obviously, it's freezing outside here in Columbus, so you should be okay with that. And then the other thing is you really want to make sure that it's quiet. So for some people, they need the white noise, they need the little like kind of sound machines and things like that. They listen to the raindrops. They'll listen to like the stormy weather, whatever kind of comforts you and makes you feel calm and relaxed. Those noises are okay. But if you're blasting like music with lyrics and all those other things, like that's why your body's not able to completely wind down and go into the sleep mode that you really would need to. And you kind of stay kind of like in between, where you're kind of awake, but you're also asleep. And that's not really the most restful, high quality sleep place to be. But yeah, so that's just something that I would recommend. Instead of reaching for melatonin, activate your own internally.
Yeah, that's good information. I have tried to, I've been doing that, going in my room, turning all the lights out, making it dark. And I'm telling you, I have been resting, because doing this kind of work that we do, we a lot of times, in whether it's ministry counseling, the work that we do as writers, you know, the work we do as far as with our individuals, with our more life work, we have to be able to shut all that stuff down. And so that's what I'm learning to do, and it's been quite helpful. And I hope this information that our audience is getting, that they'll take some of these tools and begin to use those. And if you have, like, once again, if you have more questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll make sure that someone answer those for you. I'm going to jump to Chris real quick. And Chris, I was thinking how, when we're talking about making changes, and Dr. Martina gave us a lot of stuff. Okay. What's one, no, how do you help someone recognize when motivation turns into being too hard on themselves? So new year, new me, mind, body, and spirit. I not me personally, but individuals have these New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. Now the snow is here. I'm going to go to sleep a little bit earlier. I'm going to implement my prayer and things like that. But then here we are getting ready to go into February, and we're back to our old selves again.
Yes, now we're going right back to the performance anxiety lens.
Uh-huh.
So whatever this is that you wrote down and you start to fall back, your brain says, this ain't cool. When your brain says this ain't cool, there's no difference from a pack of wolves chasing you, walking out and there's a bear at the trash, or I'm not reaching my goals, I'm falling behind. The brain handles it all at one speed and one level. It freaks out. We crash, that chimp thing comes out. You get the anxiety. I got one of those close to me. From Inside Out 2, the hormones flow through the body. And now this thing that was being used for good is overwhelming my nervous system. Every time I think about this goal, it's overwhelming my nervous system because you turned on your threat response. The brain says, oh, this is a threat. The red code alert sounds, and you flip your lid. And so when somebody comes to me to be coached, I handle all disconnection as a performance anxiety issue. First thing you're going to do, feel it in your body or feel it somewhere. And then you lose your thinking brain and then you quit.
Mm.
And normally it's all tied to our thoughts and the brain feeling unsafe for not meeting that goal. It's a brain system. And with that, a lot of people feel they're broken. Man, I didn't run the marathon I wanted to run, or I didn't lose most of fitness goals. I didn't lose the weight I wanted to lose. I didn't stop watching as much TV. I didn't go to sleep like I wanted to. And they think they're broken. They're not broken. The system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do when you feel unsafe.
I'm gonna throw this in here real quick for you all to answer. I'm gonna start with Lisa. How realistic is the whole new year, new me kind of thing? How realistic is that, even when we look spiritually, in a spiritual lens, Lisa? And then I'm gonna come to you, Martina, and then back to Chris. How realistic is that? Because this new year comes in, and I get motivated. I'm going to eat differently. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to change my household around. How realistic is that? And then how can we be more centered spiritually to even move in that arena, for better terminology?
So it's really unrealistic because we are adding pressure to an already, most of us feel the pressure. Pressure is just the day-to-day pressures of life. And so from that lens, it is unrealistic because of the added pressure that you place on yourself. It's not coming from anywhere else other than yourself and how you're looking at your life. It kind of points back somewhat to the question that you asked me earlier about feeling discouraged and behind. We put pressure on ourselves when we don't rest, when we don't become more content. And part of that is through our relationship with Christ. When we, even if it's just 5 minutes, read our Bible app scripture, whisper a prayer. God is always listening. We can pray when we're in the car. If you have children, sometimes we drive our children to school, or we're in the car with our spouse or our significant other. Even when the first thing we do when we wake up, we can just whisper a prayer. And when you go to the restroom, take your phone and read your scripture. That's feeding your soul, your spirit, so that those things, the word says, take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. That's a song we used to sing. It's rooted in scripture. We take let God have the pressure. He can handle it. So I think that it's unrealistic, and we get discouraged because it's an unrealistic expectation that we put on ourselves, a pressure that we put on ourselves because we're looking at the influencers on TikTok, or we are looking at our friend who has the glow up. We're looking at people in church who, I don't know, they have a new car or have been blessed with a new car. But yet you have a car that runs every day and gets you to work, and the heat runs, and or God blessed you with the money to get on the bus or to get in an Uber. So I think part of it is to be learning to be content. Paul talks about that, about learning to be content in all things. And that's so hard for us because in our culture, we want the next best thing. And again, there is nothing wrong with wanting nice things and having good things. But again, is it a God thing? So I think that when we look at reinventing ourselves, it's not reinventing ourselves, or we need to shift our focus in how we are renewed daily through Christ and be transformed by the renewing of our mind. That's Romans 12:2. So if we keep that, make God, Jesus, our focus in our relationship with him, that can help center us, and we can align ourselves in lockstep with what God wants, how he wants our life, what he wants our life to look like.
Either one of you all can go next.
I go.
Question.
Okay. So the more everyone talked, it always came back around thoughts. A big thing is that people don't slow down, just like they don't feel, they don't tap into their thoughts. We say some mean stuff to ourselves and
That's
other
right.
people.
Yes.
I think I'm funny, so I know the jokes I tell myself that I'll be laughing at is inappropriate at times or can be triggering.
That's
The
good.
difference is I'm listening. And once I was taught to listen to my thoughts, that changed everything for me. So when we talk about multi personalities, we ain't talking about the mental health diagnosis or the bipolar stuff. When you walk to the refrigerator, you're having a conversation. You're just not aware. When you're taking a shower, there's a conversation going on. When I shave, I have to take a book because that's as we talk, that's one of the only times in the ADHD brain that my brain focusing in unless I'm meditating or doing yoga, because those thoughts come and they go and I can't remember them. So you have to, so for tomorrow, just think about what you're telling yourself in the shower. Watch the stuff what are you saying to yourself when you drive to work, you leave, and the next time you're present again is when you pull in the parking lot to get out. There was some inner conversations happening between several different people. If you was in therapy and I put you all in chairs, there's a lot. So when we talk about that, again, it goes back to taking your thoughts captive. And in what Philippians 4:8, I think it's are the thoughts true that you're telling yourself?
That's right.
Because you have to have also look up this thing called 10 cognitive distortions. Won't run through them now. They're going to turn the camera on. But look at that stuff and say, am I doing these things? Write this stuff down, journal about it. This is where people say, oh, I don't need no help. Well, you start tracking your thoughts. You might want to meet up with a mental health professional or your minister to see these things coming out because you're blocking them out. So you have to become present again, present in what I'm feeling. Remember, it happens in milliseconds. Brain don't know the difference. My thoughts probably triggering that stuff. When you walk down the alley, see a shadow, your brain says, "Oh, that look like a person." You get down there, it's a trash can.
Mm.
And you felt just like, because that's your thinking. Our thinking drives everything for us. And that's where we talk about the spiritual relationship is important, because you got to tap into that, because once that goes, the adversary got us.
Yeah.
And it controls everything. Sickness. That's why you can meditate to be sick or meditate for health. There's all kind of new studies and books out now where you can read about the power of tapping into the body to heal itself, and it's thinking based.
Yes.
And that's good, Chris, too. And that's one of the reasons why when we look at more life, the trauma care and trauma services, because there has been so much trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Especially think about what we're dealing with in our communities, in our society. Think about the snow that really triggered me, and Dr. Martina was talking about this, that kind of triggered that whole COVID thing again. I was like, oh, wow. Think about that. We can't go nowhere. We're locked in, and I
Mm-hmm.
found myself just opening the door to get some fresh air, and that for me, it works for me. So when we do this work that we do for more life, we're talking about the different areas of our lives, mind, body, and spirit. We're talking about the importance of sleep and why it's important for you to take some of the tools that Dr. Present to us on this evening, so that even if you take one or two and begin to try to rest, spiritually, get focused spiritually. And so as we're getting ready to wind down, it's been a great conversation.
It
I have
has.
a couple of things I kind of just want to hear from you as we're closing down that I think would be helpful. I don't think we have any questions so far. We've had a lot of good feedback that people are listening, and it's been very helpful. Um, one thing that each of you would think or would like to share with the audience about what they should protect within themselves. One thing.
I think, if anything, thinking about especially what others have said, that was like right on point with anything that I would have said, because even all that stuff happens at night, and a lot of people don't realize, like, that's why you don't just deal with your sleep problems by yourself. You actually get help, and there are doctors and other people who are able to help you with your sleep and really walk you through how to improve it. But when I think about the main thing that people don't realize what rest actually is, especially like it's beyond just peace. It's genuinely like a surrender. So let me break that down. So when we think about, like, even Jesus saying, like, he'll give rest to the weary, it's really him actually saying, I got it. There's really nothing for you to do. I got it. And will you actually give it to me, knowing that I'm doing all the work anyways? I'm the bigger ox, you're the little ox. I got it. Are you going to follow? Are you going to lay it down, those burdens? Or are you going to try to keep carrying them? Because a lot of people think that we're in a sleep crisis right now, but really at the root of it is a surrender rest crisis. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's really a lot of people still trying to be in control, which is anxiety, by the way. At the root is really wanting to control your circumstances, and then continuing to fight, and try your best to overcome all these things from not just like a safety, like kind of alert system, like Chris said so profoundly, but for some of us, the anxiety actually is so much deeper than that, where you didn't have control in certain circumstances, and now you're weary trying to get your control back. So how can we stop, really ask the Lord to take these situations, these burdens, all the things that we're carrying that are so heavy, and then actually rest? And rest knowing that he's actually got it. He said there is nothing too hard for God. With God, all things are possible. If anything, he's able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all we could ever imagine or think. And if you allow yourself in this new year, you actually can experience Ephesians 3:20, but instead of you thinking that it starts with all these big changes, all these very dramatic things that you can post on social media, it's actually the quiet time where you slow down and you actually rest and you lay everything at the Lord's feet and you let him blow your mind this year with how good it can get when you take your hands off.
Mhm.
Lisa, Minister Lisa. That was good, Dr. Martina. Anything you want to add, Minister Lisa?
I think
Okay.
that one thing that we definitely should focus and protect is our relationship with God, because He is our source. And when we abide in Him, the word says that He'll abide in us. And I think that however we can carve out that time to make it a priority to spend time to get to know Him better. And that is more than just going to church on Sunday, which is a great thing. Definitely. We don't want to, being in fellowship with one another is part of helping us with depression and anxiety, because we're built for fellowship. We are not built for isolation. So I think that if we, again, back to for our focus on Him, I think that's where we can start with our protection, and then everything else can be an offshoot of that.
Chris?
I think what we heard today was process, a big umbrella of process with a number of things falling under that umbrella that you carry. One is the self-awareness piece that we talked about. Be aware of what's happening in your body and what are you thinking. The spiritual piece, what is my relationship like? Just like Minister just mentioned, we're built for a connection. If I got into attachment theory and all that, but we're built for connection beginning in the womb. How you sleep. When you sleep, you repair yourself. That's another system. The rugged individual, we don't have to be rugged individuals because we're built for that connection. Most of the time, somebody built the wheel. It's us who don't want to go to the person who already built the wheel for a number of reasons. And we have to stop that, especially for my guys. My guys, because whether toxic masculinity or suffer in silence, men don't cry. A lot of people don't see their fathers and uncles. People cry to a funeral. And so now we have a crisis of low emotional self-awareness in my guys. So under that umbrella, you got to be self-aware and see what you need. And when you figure that out, you go to the person who can fill your cup. I think that was the biggest takeaway today.
I know that the information you have given from the responses have been really, really helpful. I want to share with someone that might be out there that is still struggling with new year, new me. You don't need a new version of you. God already knows who you are because He created you. Take some time to, as you heard on the night, that thread of taking some time to learn about yourself and also reaching out and seeking help. And so we want to offer you more life if you need any kind of emotional support, counseling, for substance abuse, trauma, mental health. morelifetoday.org is our website. Our number, I believe they'll post that again. And just knowing that we want to help and support you any way we can. We want to thank our speakers on tonight that they gave great information, and information and knowledge is power. And so we want to thank you again. morelife.org. 6265711, I want to believe is the number to reach out to. It was there earlier. It was not now.
There it is.
There it is.
614-626-5771.
5771. Yes. So there's the number. We're going to let it go by one more time and just encourage anyone that might be struggling not to be embarrassed. We're a faith-based organization. We are not trying to convert anyone. We're going to meet you where you're at. We're going to support you. And we want people to heal and to be whole. So we want to thank you again. And again, if you need us, reach out to us. I want to thank Dr. Matina. I want to thank Professor Chris and Minister Lisa on tonight. And hopefully we'll get together again. You'll hear from us hopefully in the next couple months. Blessings to you all. Enjoy your evening.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.